at 10 a.m. Thank you for joining this morning. Hey, it looks like it is 10 a.m. Central Time. Various times depending on what time zone you're joining from, but it's the top of the hour, so we're going to get started. Good morning, all. My name is Tara Warner. I am the Financial Management Division Director here at NIFA and also your moderator for the day. We're going to start with some opening remarks from Doug Rose.
Thanks, Tara. Appreciate it very much. Hello, and thank you for attending Day 5 of NIFA's Grant Support Technical Assistance Workshop. My name is Doug Rose, and I'm the Director of Administrative and Operations here at NIFA. We appreciate you joining in today's final session of this week-long event. Our session today will cover awards and management. During this session, our team will cover 6 critical elements you will need to know once you have been recommended for a grant award from NIFA. We will also have time for questions and answers at the end. All the resources, including the presentations and Spanish translations, are available at the USDA NIFA Grant Support Technical Assistance Workshop website. Please use these resources and share with your colleagues. Also, we need your feedback on the workshop to help improve technical assistance for our stakeholders. You can send feedback to adminopsteam.nifa@usda.gov. We need to know whether the workshop was useful and if you have any recommendations on how it can be improved in the future. Thanks for attending this week's webinar series. We appreciate your time and your interest in our programs.
Thank you so much for those opening remarks, Doug. So now I'm going to introduce my Zoom room host, Cassandra Huey. She will be sharing slides and providing that type of technical assistance for our speakers today. Cassandra, can you please start sharing the first slide deck? Thank you so much. So we're going to get started with our first presentation and our first set of speakers. Our first presentation is going to be on awards, terms, and conditions. And our speakers will be Stephanie Smith and Rachel. Being told my sound is not high enough, so forgive me if you can't hear me. Stephanie Smith and Rachel Henderson. The panelists participating in that will be Stephanie Smith, Rachel Henderson, Edwin Lewis, Mark Heap, and Jeanette Jensen. So we will go ahead and move forward with that presentation.
Good morning. As Tara said, this presentation covers awards management and award terms and conditions. Next slide, please. My name is Stephanie Smith. I'm a grants management specialist. I will be co-presenting with my colleague, Rachel Henderson, who is also a grants management specialist. Next slide. This slide contains contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. Language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request. And anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address listed on the slide. USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. Next slide. During this presentation, we will cover some aspects of pre-award, allowability of expenses, award terms and conditions, the prior approval matrix, required reporting, and the closeout process. Next slide. Starting with pre-award, it is required that applicant organizations be registered in sam.gov, and complete the Financial Assistance General certifications and representations. As seen in the picture, when asked if you want to apply for a federal financial assistance project or program, please select yes and continue to fill out the additional questions. Next slide. During the administrative review process, a grants management specialist will review the project budget and budget justification for recommended proposals. The budget is completed on the R&R budget form as shown to the right. The budget justification should contain sufficient details as to the proposed use of funds. This also includes the base pay for key personnel requesting salary, as salary requests will be reviewed during the administrative review process. Next slide. For the next couple of slides, we will cover indirect cost recovery. Recovery of indirect costs may be limited by regulation or statute. Each program may be different, and the RFA will state if indirect cost recovery is allowable for a program. For most NIFA programs, indirect costs are limited to an amount not to exceed 30% of total federal funds awarded, or TFFA, which includes the prime recipient indirect cost plus subaward indirect cost. Indirect cost limits and restrictions will be communicated in the RFA. Next slide. When indirect costs are allowable, an approved federally negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, abbreviated to NIFA, or election of the 10% de minimis rate is required. If you do not have a negotiated rate, you have a few different options. You may request negotiation from your cognizant agency, or request a 10% de minimis rate, which is calculated as 10% of modified total direct cost, or you can waive indirect cost recovery. For more information on indirect costs, please visit our website. Next slide. On the next few slides, we will cover allowability of expenses as guided by the cost principles in 2 CFR 200. Costs must be reasonable, allocable to the project, and allowable. They must follow generally accepted accounting principles appropriate to the circumstances and conform to any limitation or exclusions. The detailed budget justification will allow us to determine if proposed costs meet these requirements. Moreover, the RFA may include expenses that are unallowable for a specific program, and uniform guidance provides additional information on common expenses. Next slide. This slide covers unallowable costs. The picture to the right is taken directly from the table titled Allowable/Unallowable Costs Matrix All Awards in the NIFA Federal Assistance Policy Guide. Text in the red box shows that entertainment costs are unallowable. Other unallowable costs are costs incurred after the award expiration date, incentives used to incentivize behavior, and promotional items. Next slide. This slide shows costs that may be allowable under specific conditions. The example in the red box shows equipment may be allowable with conditions. Other examples are construction of permanent structures, equipment without a programmatic purpose, and meals and food when not part of a workshop or conference, or when there is no need for continuity of the meeting. More information can be found in the NIFA Policy Guide, following the link on the bottom of this slide. I will now pass the presentation to my colleague, Rachel Henderson.
Good morning. Could you go to the next slide, please? Now we're going to start talking about the terms and conditions. The next slide, please. Award terms and conditions have a basis in the legislature for that particular funding source and the agency that's providing the funding. NIFA's Term and Conditions website has a section with the general research terms and conditions, program-specific award terms and conditions for the programs that are accepted from the general award terms and conditions. Next slide, please. Upon award, the project director and the authorized representative who were listed on the SF 424 of the proposal will receive an award face sheet, an approved budget, and an ASAP letter from a no reply email. This image is an example of an award face sheet at the bottom where the provision set is, and the provision sets call out specific details that are for that award and where to find the terms and conditions. In this example, the second provision is the one that tells you that this particular award is following the research terms and conditions and the USDA NIFA agency-specific terms and conditions from May 2022 and provides a link to that web page. Other provisions of note on this provision set is provision number 6 that reminds you that this program has a 30% total federal funds awarded cap on the indirect costs that Stephanie discussed before. Provision 8 reminds you that reporting should be done accurately and timely, and more detailed information on the reporting and reporting requirements are in the terms and conditions. The final provision in this example instructs you to draw down your funds in a timely manner and that the initial drawdown signifies that you accept the award terms and conditions. Each award will have a different set of provisions, so make sure that you read them carefully so that you know what's required on your specific award. Also keep in mind that the RFA proposal and the project initiation documents are still relevant throughout the life of the award. If the RFA said that something wasn't allowed, then it's not allowed for the life of the award, even if the provisions and the terms and conditions don't expressly deny it. Next slide, please. If you click on the link on that award face sheet that I showed you before, it will take you to this website of the research terms and conditions and the USDA agency-specific terms and conditions. The research terms and conditions include an Appendix A, the prior approval matrix. That's the first red star. We'll talk about more about the prior approval matrix in a few minutes. Appendix B is subaward requirements that would take place if you have a subaward on your award, and Appendix C are the national policy requirements. Below that are the agency-specific terms and conditions. I put a star next to the top one, the May 2022, because that's the one that was referenced in the provision set that I showed you before, and it's also the most current set of agency-specific terms and conditions. Next slide, please. A few of the programs don't use the NIFA General Award Terms and Conditions. So if you continue to scroll down that web page, you'll come to this set that's the ones that are exempted from the general terms and conditions. So that includes the capacity programs, the 1890 facilities program, and the small business innovation research program, which is also known as SBIR. So you want to make sure that you've gone to the terms and conditions set that was mentioned in the provisions, and that's also applicable to your award so that you're following the correct terms and conditions for your particular award. Next slide, please. Please make sure that you've read your terms and conditions. They contain more information or are more detailed than what was in the provision set on your award face sheet. Not everything in your terms and conditions is going to be relevant to everyone, and some of the awards will have additional requirements based on your specific project. So you need to make sure that you've caught everything by reading them thoroughly. For example, a commonly missed item is that subawards that over $30,000 are supposed to be reported to fsrs.gov as part of the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act. Next slide, please. Now we're going to talk about the prior approval matrix. This prior approval matrix is used by many agencies to determine when a changes on the award are require prior approval by NIFA, and when they're waived and you're allowed to do that all on your own. The agencies are listed in the top row, and we put a box around USDA NIFA. We're kind of in the middle of the matrix. The items that you might have questions on whether or not they require prior approval are in the first column. You'll want to make sure that you're looking at the correct column for NIFA to correctly decide how to treat changes on your award. The prior approval matrix doesn't override the RFA. So if the RFA said that something needs prior approval, it's always going to need prior approval, even if the matrix says that the action is waived. Next slide, please. Some common things that require prior approval are when your project director or your co-project director change. You want to change your scope of work or objective of the project. Your project director is disengaging from the project for more than 3 months, or they're reducing their time spent by more than 25%. Or if you are transferring budget items, transferring money out of the participant support costs on your budget. Those things are all going to need prior approval from NIFA. If you've reviewed your prior approval matrix and you're still not sure whether or not an action that you want to take requires approval from NIFA, please reach out to us at awards@usda.gov and someone will answer the question for you so that you take the correct action. Next slide, please. There are 3 reports that are commonly due for competitive awards, and some programs are going to have additional reporting requirements. The first one is progress reports. Those are due within 90 calendar days of the award anniversary date, unless the award phase sheet instructs you to submit a progress report earlier than the award anniversary date or more frequently than annually. Progress reports are submitted using the REEport or REEport portal. The second report is the Federal Financial Report, which is also called the SF-425. It's submitted at the same time frame as the progress report, so it's due within 90 days of the anniversary date, unless the award phase sheet says something different. The Federal Financial Report is a standard form that's used widely throughout the federal government. This report is completed as a PDF and then submitted via email to awards@usda.gov. The third report is the REEport Project Financial Report. This is a financial report that covers expenses and full-time equivalencies for people working on the award for the previous federal fiscal year. The federal fiscal year is October 1st to September 30th. The REEport Project Financial Report is submitted by February 1st in REEport. And there's another session about REEport later on today. Some programs, such as SBIR, also have additional reporting requirements, so you want to read the award terms and conditions carefully to make sure that you haven't missed any of the reports that are due. Next slide, please. At the end of the award's period of performance, you have 120 days to close out the award. Closeout involves completing your final drawdowns and all the reporting. A final federal financial report, or the SF-425, is submitted to awards@usda.gov, and it covers the life of the award. The amount that you drew down should also match the amount that's reported on the SF-425. You'll also submit a final progress report in REEport, and that covers the life of the award. A final REEport Project Financial Report will be due in REEport, and it covers the federal fiscal year that you haven't reported on yet. Some programs will have additional closeout requirements. You'll also want to make sure to follow your institution's record retention policies for how long you should keep your records after it closed. It's going to be a minimum of 3 years from the date of your from the date that you submitted your final expenditure report. Next slide, please. All right, and now we are ready to answer any questions that you might have.
I see that we have one outstanding question in the Q&A box. It looks like someone may be typing an answer, but I will go ahead and read it out loud. Can I apply different proposals to different programs, or just one proposal for one program as a new investigator?
I'm being quiet. I was going to let someone from programs answer that.
Yeah, I was actually in the middle of answering that question, but I can answer it here. So a new investigator can apply to more than one program with different projects, but they can only accept one award as a new investigator. And I'm going to answer that in the chat as well, so you guys have a record of that.
Thank you, Susan. Second question that I'm seeing in our Q&A is, do you pay tax for SBIR awards?
Please talk to your tax preparer for the answer to this question.
And from an accounting perspective at NIFA, we can't answer questions in regards to personal taxes, but what I can tell you is that unless your terms and conditions in the program says that the grant is not taxable, which is rare, it's taxable. So the second one is, are permanent structures allowed in the SAS, which has ceiling level of 10 million award?
I'm sorry, I'd have to look at the RFA to get back to you on that. I don't know off the top of my head if permanent structures are allowed under an SAS award.
Thank you, Rachel, we will address that once she researches. Second question I'm seeing in the Q&A right now. When I try to fill out the progress report, there is scientist, professional, technical, etc., FTE effort reporting. How do we get a definition of these terms?
This is Adam. I'll be doing the report presentation later, but I can jump in here. I can provide the resource where we have the definitions for those roles when doing FTE reporting. Should I just post that in the chat?
Yes, just post it in the Q&A.
Nope. Okay,
I'll
I'll answer it in the Q&A. Very good.
Thanks. And I think it's already been brought up, but there is a difference, everyone, between the chat and the Q&A. So please put any questions in the Q&A. The next one is, do you mean they can only accept one if they submitted the proposals under the quote unquote new investigator category? What happens if they don't indicate new investigator in their application, and can they accept multiple grants?
Yes, they can accept multiple grants as if they're not a new investigator, but only if those projects that you're working on are different in nature. So you cannot submit multiple applications to different program areas with the same project, but you can submit multiple projects that are different in nature and receive awards for those.
Thank you. The next question we have in the Q&A is for the matching. Can we change the matching fund coming from materials to faculty salary?
That would generally be allowable, and you can also view the prior approval matrix that Rachel shared to see when you need to notify NIFA of any budget changes. And if you have any questions on if it is allowable, please feel free to contact us.
Thank you. We have another question. I have awarded a grant before, and during submission, I check marked both seed and new investigator. Can I apply for another new investigator again?
So it sounds like you were awarded a grant before for a new investigator. If you've already received one new investigator grant, you would no longer be considered a new investigator and could not apply again as one. Once you've had federal funding as a PD, you are no longer a new investigator.
One more question. A PD has not contacted co-PDs on the operation of the grant. As co-PD has the same responsibilities, what should a co-PD do in that situation?
I will give a short answer, but if anyone else wants to jump in, please feel free. I would suggest contacting your sponsored office program.
Next question in the chat is, I have been a co-PD for a grant. Can I apply for a NI? I'm assuming that's new investigator.
Yes, you can. You can have no previous federal funding as a PD other than a pre or postdoc fellowship or an AFRE seed grant. But as a co-PD, I believe you can.
Okay, our next question is, what is the typical overhead cut for NIFA grants? Is this decided by NIFA or by the hosting institution?
So indirect costs are determined by what is stated in the RFA. And usually you need a federally negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, which you have negotiated with your federal cognizant agency. And or if you haven't, then it's a 10% de minimis rate, or you can choose not to take indirect costs. And the RFA is the best place to look for this. And if a proposal is recommended, we will have a discussion during the administrative review process about indirect cost.
Next question. If a person receives an FAS grant as the PD, can they also apply as new investigator for AFRE within 3 years into profession?
I'll take that one as well. I'm assuming you're talking about the strengthening grants, the phase grants. If you've been awarded federal funds as a PD, including a phase, then you would not qualify as a new investigator.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, can I submit a similar proposal to different programs, even though eventually one will be funded if getting the award? If eventually only one will be funded?
No, you cannot submit similar proposals to different programs, even if you are only going to accept one. That is not allowable.
And we have another question. Can it be used for office admin help?
I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but office administration help is commonly covered by indirect costs. So if you have a negotiated indirect cost agreement or you use the de minimis rate, it would be covering your admin in your office.
Rachel. For right now, it looks like that we have reached the end of the questions in our Q&A box. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to put them in there. We do have a little bit of time, but if not, then we will. Okay, so we do have a few more. Clarifying to the last question, indirect costs to be used for admin help. It was clarified as indirect costs. I believe you answered that. Next one is, I want to apply a need grant as PD. Can I contribute other grants as co-PD?
I'll take that one. I imagine that you're meaning a seed grant as a PD. Yes, you can contribute as a co-PD on other grants.
Thank you. Couple more questions popping up. If I have a specialty crop block grant, can I still apply as early career applicant as still under 5 years of service? Like Nirja is typing an answer to that one, so I'm going to move on to the second question while she replies in writing. What if by time of award, a PI not qualify as new PI for a new investigator grant? Hearing a pause, so I'm thinking that that may need for us to go back and find an answer to your question, and we will make sure that we get that answer. Any more questions at this time? Please feel free to put them in the Q&A portion. Okay. All right. It looks like we have everything addressed either verbally or in writing. If something comes up later on, of course, we will make sure that we definitely address it, even if it's not associated to the current presentation. Okay. So with that, we're going to move on to our next portion of the program, where we are going to have Betty McGaughey from the ASAP payments team here at NIFA discuss ASAP, which is how you get paid. So I will now go ahead and turn the microphone over to Betty.
Hello, everyone. As Tara mentioned, my name is Betty McGaughey. I'm the acting ASAP team lead. Today, I will be discussing the payment section of the award, which is also known as ASAP. Next slide, please. So let's meet a portion of the ASAP team. We have Lily Espinosa, the branch chief, Terry Warner, division director, and again, myself, the team lead, Betty McGaughey. Next slide, please. Here we have the non-discrimination statement. Stephanie did hit some very important criteria in this statement. I'm just going to reiterate and state that USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. Next slide, please. So the agenda for today, what is ASAP? The ASAP team introduction. We're going to talk about some contacts and training, some changes that were made within ASAP, and some frequently asked questions. Next slide, please. So what is ASAP? ASAP is a Department of Treasury system and a completely electronic payment application for federal agencies to quickly and securely disperse funds to recipient organizations' accounts, also known as grantees. The primary task for NIFA includes enrolling grantees, authorizing funds, and assisting grantees in troubleshooting issues. Keep in mind, ASAP is not a USDA system, so technical issues must be referred directly to the Department of Treasury ASAP Help Desk. Next slide, please. So how do ASAP work? ASAP works for federal agencies and organizations utilizing federal funds to enroll to use ASAP. It assists federal agencies to maintain accounts in ASAP to control the flow of funds to organizations and to enter spending authorization into grantees' accounts in accordance with their program needs and schedules. ASAP also works for payment requesters at organizations to initiate payment requests through ASAP to meet cash needs, commonly referred to as a drawdown. Next slide, please. Here we have the ASAP team. So as I stated before, we had Tara Warner as the branch chief, Tara Warner as the division director, Lily Espinosa as the division branch chief. The staff accountants, we have Jan Gallagher, Shelly Snyder, Samuel Gals, and Terry Whitby. Next slide, please. Here we have some contacts and training information. For technical issues, please contact the Department of Treasury ASAP Help Desk. They can be reached by phone or email at asaphelpdesk@physicaltreasury.gov. For any funding issues, contact the NIFA ASAP Customer Service Team at asapcustomerservice@usda.gov. For any grant issues, contact NIFA Awards Management Division at awards@usda.gov. Next slide, please. So here we're going to discuss some ASAP changes. Next slide, please. ASAP have made some changes to their return process. So ASAP have lifted the 32-day restriction for returning funds via ACH. You can now search for payments within 180-day increments, and you can also input your banking information to accept the ACH debit. Keep in mind, ACH or Fairwire are still the required methods to return funds to ASAP accounts. Next slide, please. Also, here's some more information in regards to returning funds through ASAP. Ensure your bank allows ACH debit. A user can initiate an ACH payment return regardless of the date of settlement, as long as the following two criteria are met. The account status is not closed. The return will not cause the account balance to exceed the total cumulative authorization, which means the grant amount that was approved for that particular ASAP account. The search criteria must be within the 180-day calendar time frame in ASAP, and you can return either the full or partial amount of the funds, but only can process one return per payment. Next slide, please. Frequently asked questions. Next slide, please. So the ASAP team often receive questions in regards to why I am unable to access my funds in ASAP. We do encourage grantees or organizations or institutions to be sure that the user must have a role of a payment requester. Payment requesters are the only ones that can initiate payments in ASAP. Be sure that the account status must be in an open or liquidated status. And also be sure that it is not within the last 4 business days of every month during our month-end reconciliations. If you try to draw down funds within the last 4 business days of each month, you will experience some type of issue as far as like you may receive an error message stating that you can't get into your ASAP account due to ASAP being suspended. Next slide, please. Why am I unable to access funds? Continue. So here is some things that you must keep in mind. For a new award, the Department of Treasury allows 5 to 10 business days to verify the banking information. Once verified, funds will be released between 7 to 10 business days, provided that no funding is withheld. For existing awards, please allow between 7 to 10 business days from the amendment approval date for funds to be dispersed into your account. If funds are still not available after these timeframes, please contact the ASAP customer service at asapcustomerservice@usda.gov. Next slide, please. How do I set up an ASAP account? We get this question all the time. The ASAP payments team at NIFA will initiate the grantee's account in ASAP. You will then be emailed an individual ID and temporary passcode to complete the enrollment. The enrollment process requires the completion of 5 tasks, which is the point of contact, head of organization, authorizing official defines recipient profile, authorizing official defines recipient organization, financial official defines banking information. Note, if you have not entered banking information, enrollment will not be complete. Next slide, please. Here's a list of user roles and their responsibilities. One of the important user roles that I initiate to grantees is the payment requesters. Initiate payments requests, as you can see their description. If you do not have a payment requester listed for your organization, you all would not be able to draw down funds in ASAP. Point of contact. The point of contact add users or modify their roles within ASAP. It is so important to have a point of contact for your account in ASAP. This allows you to go in and modify or make changes to anything that's regarding your ASAP account. Next slide, please. So what do the ASAP statuses mean? When your ASAP account is in an open status, that means that the period of performance falls within the time frame of the award, meaning that your account is open and you can draw down funds in ASAP. Liquidated status means that the account is open, you can still draw down funds, but it's within that 120-day time frame following the period of performance end date. Suspended. When your account is in a suspended status, there could be several reasons why your account is in a suspended status. It could be because of the last 4 business days of every month, administrative issues, or the time frame after the 120-day period has expired. If your ASAP account is in a closed status, the account has been deauthorized, deobligated, and closed. Next slide, please. Here's a common question. What if I cannot use ASAP for fund returns? This is very rare. In rare circumstances, a grantee may need to return funds but cannot use ASAP to do so. We have a system called pay.gov. It is a United States Treasury website that allows individuals, states, and institutions to make secure electronic payments to the federal government using the internet. If this information applies to you, we highly suggest contacting the ASAP Customer Service Help Desk for further assistance before using this system. Again, you can contact the ASAP Customer Service Help Desk as ASAP Customer Service at USDA.gov. Next slide, please. I'm going to leave you with some tips. So to maintain your account, we do encourage that for your profile account, we do encourage that you log in every 45 days so you will not be locked out. So you will not get locked out. Maintain a POC, which is a point of contact, of head of organization. We recommend having 2 POCs. This way, in case someone have some type of technical issues or login issues, you can contact the other POC that can assist you all with maintaining and modifying your account in ASAP. Use the first in and first out accounting practice. Withdraw funds before 120 days after the end of the award and initiate drawdowns on a regular basis. Next slide, please. Any questions? If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and I will answer them momentarily. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betty. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. One is about the recordings from this week, and that's being addressed written. But the second one, how many payment requesters should be allowed for one grant? PD or the co-PD? Who should be the payment requester? Thank you. Betty, if you don't mind, I'm going to take that question. Okay. So in regards to payment requesters, it is really up to how your organization is set up. For our larger institutions like universities, we usually recommend that they have 2 to 3 payment requesters, usually working in their finance and accounting department. But if you are a smaller organization, sometimes that might not be possible. We have organizations that do not have the PD or the co-PD as the payment requester. They have a more financial type person doing that. So it's kind of up to you, but I suggest having definitely 2 or more payment requesters in order to still, have internal controls in regards to, not too many people having their hands in access to those monies, but having enough people that if someone goes on vacation or something unfortunate happens, then you still have someone with the organization that can actually draw down those funds for you. So I hope that answered the question. So we have another question. Currently, only the PI and the AOR have access to the financial system. Can the system be modified to allow access to an additional person, such as the financial officer, to do the drawdowns and financial reporting as all the other federal agencies allow? Thank you. That's, like I said, that's up to your organization. I'm not sure if I don't think it's NIFA stating that only the PI and AOR have access. Like we stated before, you should have, we suggest, we can't tell you, to have more than one person that can be allowed to do drawdowns. A financial officer, in my opinion, would be more than appropriate to be the person to do the drawdowns. I've seen that set up in many organizations, but that also may be some sort of restriction in regards to your own institution, your own organization's policies. But as far as NIFA is concerned, we trust who you trust to do your drawdowns. If you have any more questions, please drop them in the Q&A. It looks like that we've answered all your questions at this time. Oh, wait a minute, one more. Does a SPIR require a financial officer or can the PD be in charge? And I see someone answering that question for me in the chat. So do we have any additional questions at that time, at this time? Well, it looks like that we can move on to our next set of speakers. Thank you so much, Betty. for your presentation. And now we're moving on to impact. Our speakers for impact will be Faith Peppers and La Rochelle Smith, and our panelists will be Faith Peppers, La Rochelle Smith, Edwin Lewis, and Alexis Nazario Negron. If we can go ahead and start sharing those slides, please. And thank you, Faith.
Thank you, Tara. I am Faith Peppers. I'm Director of NIFA Communication, and I'm happy to be here today to talk to you about perhaps one of the most important aspects of having a grant from NIFA, and that's sharing your impact. What did your grant produce? What benefit does your grant have for science or for the American people? And how do we help you tell that story? A lot of people will say, why are we talking about impacts at this point? Doesn't that come at the end? And the fact is that in order to be able to really demonstrate your impact, you need to know where you started. So it's important to think about impact at the very beginning when you're putting your proposal in, when you're developing out your idea for this project. You need to know, how are you going to benchmark where you're starting? So once you complete your project, you know where you made a difference and how far your project went in making an impact. So you have to really benchmark that in the beginning, but also as you're planning out your project, you have to think about, what method am I going to use to evaluate the progress made in this project? How am I going to do milestone checks throughout the course of the life of this project so that I can see incremental change? Are there changes I need to make in what I'm doing if I'm not leading myself toward the impact that I had in mind at the beginning of this project? And how do I make those shifts? So it's important to start the project with the impact in mind. And with that, we're going to talk to you today a little bit about what actually is impact. What is it that you're looking for? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So what exactly is impact, and why does sharing the impact of a project matter? It proves your value. It shows the work that you were doing and what value does that bring to the body of science. What value does that have to the community you serve? What value do you have in your role? And why people should respect and recognize that. It highlights your effectiveness. It tells people that you're doing a great job and what that looks like. It also increases your visibility. It helps people see more of your work and what you're doing and your value. It also solidifies your position. We get asked a lot about investments in science and in agriculture. And when we have strong impacts to show that the work we are doing collectively as a community in science and education and extension, that we are relevant and that we bring value. And so it helps us solidify that position and why we are important in the grand scheme of things. It also creates a database of success. People say all the time, how do we know this is working? Well, let me show you, right? So when we have that database that shows over time, here's how we're making a difference in these areas, and that helps us state the case for why what we do is important. Next slide, please. So what exactly is impact? There's a lot of confusion when we ask for impacts about exactly what that is. What impact is a reportable, quantifiable difference or potential difference a program makes in real people's lives. And why do we say difference or potential difference? If you have a short-term project, you're going to be able to show that difference fairly quickly. If you have a long-term project, you will need to report the potential difference, what you're trying to get to along the way. And you can constantly update that with milestones that you're making toward that progress. But if you're working on a 3-year or a 5-year grant project, we don't expect you to show impact in year 1. You need to show what impact you're working for. It should be a brief summary written in plain language in terms that everyone can understand. And it provides only enough detail to be easily understood. We don't need you to go through every step of your methodology and how you're going to carry out your project in your impact report. We need to know highlighted briefs. This is the problem that I was working to solve. This is generally the method that I used to conduct this project. And save most of your words to really focus on the impact. What difference did it make in real people's lives? Next slide, please. An impact statement should show a behavior change, or people, because of the work we did, people are now doing things differently. A change of attitude. We've made people more aware and they feel more positive or more engaged with this issue than they did before. Or it shows an improvement in the situation. This can be economic improvement. It can be an environmental improvement. It can be a community improvement, but shows some improvement in the situation that you were working to address in your project. Next slide, please. What an impact statement is not is just an accounting of how many people showed up for a program, how many flyers or fact sheets you gave out about the work you're doing, how many phone calls you answered, how many people visited your website or liked your Facebook post, how many journals you were published in. Those are outputs, and they're very important, and they will help you lead to the impact, but they are different from impact because they show an accounting of the outputs that came as a result of your project, but the impact shows what difference all of that made. Next slide, please. So again, you know, when you're looking at what's the key change that you can report as part of your impact, was it improved economic value or efficiency? Did you help people improve crop yields, or did you help people save money on inputs? Like what is the economic value or greater efficiency created as a result of your work? Did you improve the quality of the environment? Did you help people put fewer chemicals in the environment? Did you help improve air quality? Is there a measurable environmental quality change that you can show? Or social well-being? Did you help improve people's health and well-being? Those are things that we can also measure based on the impact that the outputs and the outcomes of our projects had. And does it illustrate the impact on people's lives? Does it improve business? Does it improve the community? You know, what is that verifiable change? And one of the things that tells you that you've gotten to impact is if you can read what you have written as your impact statement and clearly see that it answers the question, so what? I did all of this work. This is what I produced. So what? What difference did that make? As Secretary Vilsack often tells us, impact tells a story. So is your impact telling the story of what is better because you did this research project? Next slide, please. So when you are working on an impact statement for the NIFA reporting system, you're going to be asked to define the relevance. What problem are you addressing? What was your response? What did you do to address that problem? What were the results? The impact that has happened because of your response. So think about that. And in general, a paragraph for each section is what you should be working for. But you will also notice that those first two are usually covered in your application, in your proposal. So you've already defined that there is a problem. Here is the problem, right? Think about that maybe as your non-technical summary. And then what was your response? What did you say in your application that you were going to do to address this problem? So you just need to condense those down into shorter language for your impact report at the end, and really spend time working on that results part. What was the result of what you did and what impact did that have? Next slide, please. We often hear from people that, well, I do all this reporting and I put things in the NIFA reporting system. Does anybody ever really look at it? The answer is yes, we do. We use that impact all the time. And we use the impact not only to tell the story of NIFA and what collectively all our work is doing, but also to help tell your story and amplify what you are doing internally and externally. Next slide, please. So some of the ways that we use impact here is when we're writing speeches, when people from NIFA are going out and giving speeches, when people from USDA are going out, we will use impacts to add good talking points for those collective speeches, and also to brief the secretary or the director when they're coming out to the states. They want to know, what has USDA done in this area that I can talk about or that I should be aware of as I'm going out and visiting people. We often get asked to contribute to White House reports or briefing memos on key priority topics like climate change, like improving nutrition and food security in America, growing better markets, those big issues. We need to be able to pull the actual impact, not just the funding, right? We funded these projects, but here's what they're doing to change these big challenges and these big priorities. We also use them to reach out to media. When we see a big media story that somebody is really working on a story about how are we building stronger markets in rural America, we can look through the impacts and say, here's some real examples of things that are happening that are addressing this issue, and provide those to our media sources. We use impacts all the time in our social media engagement. I hope you're all following NIFA on our social media platforms, and you'll see that we promote impacts daily on those platforms. In our marketing materials, it helps us talk about the value that NIFA brings to the American people through the work that you're doing. And also we write blogs and impact stories that get featured on the NIFA website and in NIFA's weekly newsletter, the NIFA Update. And we pull those directly from your impact reports and the impact stories that you are writing and providing about the impact of the work that you're doing. Next slide, please. For those of you in the land-grant university system, there are multiple places where we go and look for your impact. And the most important one for us, of course, is the NIFA reporting system, because that's a requirement and we need you to put those there. But what we have done is look at these other databases where you also report your work, such as the multi-state research projects that go into NIMS and then are also amplified through the Multi-State Research Fund Impact Project website, and also landgrantimpacts.org that is managed by the Land Grant University system. And people ask us all the time, why do we have so many reporting systems? And what we have done is work with these systems to make sure that they closely mirror each other, so that it's easy for you to write one impact statement and be able to use it in multiple locations as needed based on the type of university you are and reporting requirements you may have outside of the NIFA reporting system. So you will notice if you look at landgrantimpacts.org, the requirements for the elements of those impact statements and the elements required for NIFA reporting impact statements are very similar, if not close to being identical. And it's important that we have these different systems for this reason. NIFA funds organizations other than land-grant universities. And so we need to be able to capture all of the impact from all of the organizations that we fund. Land-grant universities are funded by many federal, state, local, and private funders outside of USDA and outside of NIFA. You also need to be able to capture the totality of your impact, not just that one slice of your impact that is funded through USDA and through NIFA. So that's why there are more than one system, and it's why more than one system is important. But I want you to know that when you are reporting in these multiple systems, we're also looking in those systems, not just in NIFA reporting, but we check those other systems too, because sometimes it helps if we can connect the work that we are funding in a key area to work that you're also doing funded by others in these key areas. So we do add those in as we can and refer to those. So don't feel like this is a duplication of effort or that those aren't important to us. They are also important to us and we are checking them. Next slide, please. Also leverage your communication staff at your organization. Whether you're at a land grant or if you are in a nonprofit, and find those communication people in your organization who can help you make sure that your impacts are written clearly and concisely, that they have simple and plain language that people can understand. We are more likely to be able to pull and elevate your impacts if they're well written, and we don't have to go through and rewrite those for you. So use your available experts to help you edit and hone those impact statements. So by the time you put them into any of these systems, they're very clear, concise, they're well edited, they're carefully proofread, and they're going to be easy to use and understand. Next slide, please. We always ask that you acknowledge NIFA, and how you acknowledge NIFA is different based on where you are reporting it. And so you will find in terms and conditions and other information provided to you in your PD meetings and in your award letters, the language that you need to use if you're in a peer-reviewed publication, or if you're creating a poster that's going to be used at a scientific conference. It will tell you the language that you need to use. But it's always important that you acknowledge that the work that you are representing there was supported by USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And there on our acknowledgement page, which I'll provide for you shortly, there is a link to the NIFA identifier, that the logo that you're expected to use. There's a very old NIFA logo that you can find on Google, and that is not the correct one. So we want to make sure that you're always using the correct identifier in your publications and your posters. So I'll pop that in the chat for you in just a moment. But it is always important that you correctly identify that your work is supported by NIFA. And we want to make sure that when you are working with media or when you're doing a story with your communicators in your organization, that is always stated clearly. And we don't ask for as much detail in a media report, because the important thing is that we get this simple statement in. But if you can add the program name, that it's supported through AFRI or it's supported through SBIR, always spell it out because people don't know what that is, the Small Business Innovation Research Initiative, then you want to include that as well. But the really important part is that we just get the NIFA name included when you're working with media. So for them, shorter is often better. Next slide, please. We also ask that when you post something about a NIFA project on social media, please tag us so that we see it. If we see that you have tagged us in something on social media, we always try to amplify that by commenting on it, by resharing it, by promoting the post. And we also make sure that USDA sees it and try to amplify it there as well. If you are doing a press release or you're writing a feature story about the impact of your project, we have a system where we can search for those, but it never hurts if you send us a copy and call our attention to it, so we're sure to see it. And we can also help you amplify that story as well. Use the NIFA reporting system and REEport as required by your grant. We do go look through those systems, look for those impacts, look for those stories, and not just at the impact end. Sometimes we're asked to provide what is some ongoing work in this area. So it's important that you do those reports as required by the terms and conditions of your grant. And those of you in the land grant impact system, find out who in your university is designated as an inputter for that system and make sure that they not only are inputting the impacts of the good work you're doing, but also that they are signifying in that system that it was funded by NIFA, because that is a search function that we can use and we do use. So it's important that they check that box so that we know and anyone using that system can see this is an important project that was supported by NIFA. And if you have big discoveries that that you think are very noteworthy or newsworthy, please make sure that you're sending those either to us or to the national program leader that's working with you on your project. Next slide, please. And that brings us to the question and answer session. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I hope La Rochelle and Alexis and Edwin are also on in case we get questions about the NIFA reporting system. I'm going to need a little help answering those questions.
Thank you so much, Faith. We do have some questions in the Q&A box. First question I see is, would a well-crafted impact statement showing positive changes help develop a CRADA, I'm not familiar with the acronym, so forgive me, for continued RD&D towards commercialization of the research?
Perhaps. So I am also not familiar with those systems. Alexis, are you through NRS?
I think they're talking about a CRADA, which is an agreement related to what's produced by that research. And so I think the short answer would be that kind of what you mentioned earlier, Faith, the better that you can describe the work that's being done and the impact that it's having, I think is something that can be communicated in various forums. A CRADA might be another example of a way that you leverage that type of information. I don't know if that's helpful, but that would be my comment.
And for those of us not familiar, I have been sent a note that it's Cooperative Research and Development Agreement. So thank you very much for that. And Mr. Weinberg, if we did not answer your question, please let us know and we can get you a more developed response. The next question is regards to the impact report. Is it ever sufficient for the main impact to be an advancement of scientific knowledge? For example, for a basic science project that doesn't yet have real world application?
Yes. And that is an impact, right? If you are providing new knowledge to other researchers so that they can use that knowledge to further their research, that is an impact. And so make sure that you are capturing that. And basic science is generally where we see the most potential or planned impact reporting. By developing this new knowledge, we can X, right? And so we see a lot of that in basic science, and that is definitely an impact and definitely something we need to see.
Thank you for that response. The next question is, can impact also focus on improvement in animal health?
Yes.
Okay, I think that was a to the point answer. Let's see here, next one.
And
Can-
Karen,
Oh,
if I may elaborate a little bit on the impact part, I
Sure,
think the
Carlos.
important part here will be to really translate it to stakeholders, right? Like to translate to how would your family, why is it important to your family? Why is it important to the American people? So make sure that even though it's basic research, even though it may be early in the discovery process, make sure that you translate that into why is it important? Why such advancement can build upon something or what you're trying to pursue with the research that you're trying to do. So the important part, we as scientists, oftentimes we stay on our scientists training and head, but the important part is really for you to translate that of why are you doing it? What are you trying to solve? Why is it important, as Faith mentioned on her training?
And one thing I'll add to what Carlos said, one of my favorite impact statements, and what does it say about me that I actually have favorite impact statements? But one of my favorite impact statements from it came from Genetics and Genomics Basic Research. They had sequenced the genome of corn. And my question was, how do I explain to people why this is important, right? How do you translate something like that to the general public to help them understand why this is an important work that's going on? And in the impact statement, it said, by providing this discovery to other researchers, we have given them the difference between having one book or having access to an entire library. And that access will help us rapidly produce new corn varieties that can help improve yields in areas of the world that suffer from famine and hunger due to drought, pests, and lack of quality soils. Got it, right? Now we can see that this scientific discovery has opened a whole new world of researchers to be able to solve a critical food insecurity issue. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Yes,
Faith.
Laura Rochelle.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to add to what Faith and Carlos have said about the importance of why the research is impactful, and also think about the multiple audiences. And one of those audiences that I am responsible for connecting your work to is NIFA staff. They find it very helpful and important to learn about the impact as well, because I think it also adds to their ability to re-envision what RFPs will look like in the future. And we also welcome you to connect with us and present in person. We'd love to hear your voices and know about those stories. So we have a program called Thoughtful Thursday, where we invite stakeholders like yourselves to come and present to us. So keep those things in mind. There are multiple audiences that are very interested in hearing those impact stories. And so that should be a consideration in your planning process.
Thank you so much, La Rochelle. Did we have any more comments from the panelists on that particular statement? We're good to go on to the next question. It looks like Susan would like to answer this question. It is, can you please clarify the eligibility of NI award in the context of an investigator who applied for the grant in NI category, but by the decision date crossed 3 years in the TT position?
Yeah, so I'm assuming you're talking about the career tracked position. So the eligibility is actually the first 5 years of your first career tracked position. So in that scenario, you would still be eligible as a new investigator.
Thank you. Our next question is regards to social media. Are Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn the only official social media platforms recognized by NIFA? Are TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, or other platforms not used?
Correct.
So for our next question, for integrated projects, can a logic model be used to help develop an impact statement document?
Absolutely. It helps you organize the thought process for how you're going to go from problem to solution to impact. And I think we've all worked in, or most of us in NIFA communications have worked with logic models before. And I think that you will find that very helpful in developing out just the process for how you're going to connect all those dots in that ultimate impact statement. Alexis, do you agree?
Yes, and I believe one of our colleagues spoke about the logic model on day one of the workshop. So if you have time to go back and look at that session, that might be informational, but Faith's absolutely right. The logic model takes that challenge, looks at the inputs and then the activities. So what's done with the inputs and then straight to the outputs. And that's where you can start talking about that impact. So absolutely.
Have any more comments from my panelists for that question? It looks like not. So we have a multi-part question in the Q&A. It is, I have been awarded CBG on nutrigenomics nutrition. I have to show cooking workshops. Do we need certifications to conduct classes? And also, please share how we should promote USDA on our posters and social groups.
I can't answer the first part of the question. I think someone in a program will probably have to answer that one. I can answer the last part. And if you would just tag us in your social media, that is sufficient. And it can be as simple as funded by, and then you can do hashtag USDA NIFA, or you can actually tag us on social media. You'll find us if you start with the @ symbol and then NIFA. And make sure you get the right NIFA, because there are a lot of NIFAs out there. There's a fashion institute, there's a football club, there's all kind of NIFAs out there. So make sure you tag the right one.
I'll chime in briefly on the CBG. I am assuming that might mean capacity building grants program. That could be our 1890 capacity building grants program. If it is, I would reach out to the program leader for that program. Also look back over the RFA, but definitely start with reaching out to the program leader for clarification on requirements regarding certifications for a cooking class. Carlos, I know you're in that division. You may have additional information.
I think you're very much correct, Edwin, in the sense that I'm unsure what the question may mean with a certification. If it's a certification for you to be able to teach the class, I don't know, but the national program leader will be able to provide the best guidance for you regarding how the project is to be conducted and if any changes need to be made to the same.
So our next question, we actually have someone typing an answer, but I'll go ahead and read it out loud. Is logic model required for all types of proposals?
I'll chime in just real quick. I don't have the overarching answer. However, I will say it's generally laid out in the RFA pretty clearly that it's a required document. So if it is required for that particular program, you will see that laid out very clearly in the RFA. I believe most of our programs do require a logic model. But again, read the RFA. If there's any questions, if you do not see it and you still have questions about whether it is required, which I've received as a program leader, I've received those emails regularly, reach out to your national program leader to get clarification before submitting your proposal. If you have any questions about requirements before submitting your applications, reach out to the program folks, whether it's logic model or other required documents.
Thank you so much for that, Edwin. Our next question is, how do we give credit to an ARS cooperative agreement funding in a press news article?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How do we give credit to an ARS cooperative agreement funding in a press news article? I'm guessing they want to give accolades to all the parties contributing to the pot of money. Like if it's a reimbursable agreement.
Mm-hmm. So if it's a NIFA grant, and ARS is a cooperating partner, then I would say you acknowledge that the funding came from USDA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and then you list ARS as a cooperator after that.
Thank you, Faith. The next question is, someone mentioned the updated official logo. Can you enter the link again? I think I missed it. Thank you. And I believe you
Just this
also-
second, pop that in the chat.
Thank you so much. Okay. So, do we have any more questions? I see a couple in the logo, so everything has been answered. It just hasn't been moved over yet. So at this time, I'm going to give us a brief 15-minute break. Please return back to the webinar. And it would be, for me, 15 minutes would be 11:35, but you can calculate that how you need to wherever you're at. So we will meet again in 15 minutes and see you shortly. All. I hope that we are all back and ready to continue to listen to our great presentation. I would like to ask for our wonderful technical Zoom host, Cassandra, to please go ahead and move to the next presentation. Thank you. This presentation is about REEport Basics, and our speaker today is going to be Adam Pruder and Alexis Nazario Negron, and we will go ahead and hand the microphone to them.
All right, thank you so much, Tara. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending where you might be joining us from. My name is Adam Preuter. I'm a program analyst with NIFA, and I am going to be talking to you about REEport. And like the title slide says, it's REEport Basics. So this is going to be a high-level overview of the system, not getting too much into the nitty-gritty detail, but of course, we're happy to try to answer any and all questions when we get to the end. Next slide, please. And one more. Okay, I know we've gone over this a couple times today, but just in case you're joining us, I'm just going to talk a moment about our non-discrimination statement. USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. Additional details are included on this slide and a link to USDA's non-discrimination statement, 508 compliance, and filing discrimination complaints. We encourage audience members to reference this slide if they have any questions or concerns. Next slide, please. Okay, what we're going to cover today is first we'll identify what REEport is in the first place. We'll talk about project initiation, accomplishment reporting, a little bit on financial reporting, and then we'll leave you with some good resources where you can find the answers, hopefully, to any questions you might have about using the system and how to reach out for support if you do need that. Okay, next slide. Okay, what is REEport? So REEport is actually an acronym, and there it is, Research, Education, and Extension Project Online Reporting Tool. But who wants to remember that? That's a mouthful for sure. So we just call it REEport. And the most important thing is, next slide, surprise, surprise, it is a reporting system. So I want to piggyback off of a couple of things that Faith Peppers was talking about earlier in her impacts presentation. I thought Faith did a fantastic job. I always enjoy listening to her talk about impact reporting. And she talked about a few different systems. And so the two I want to highlight is she talked about NRS, that's NIFA reporting system, and REEport. So I just wanted to take a moment to differentiate between those two. So REEport is a little bit of an older system. It's been around since 2013, and it currently only governs reporting on competitive awards. So there's another broad category of funding called capacity awards or capacity funding. All capacity reporting has been moved to NRS. So that's a newer system that we've developed and are continuing to develop. So I just wanted to differentiate between those two since both have been mentioned. And if you have questions about that, go ahead and put it in the Q&A and we can talk about the differences between those two if you'd like. But for now, just remember that with REEport, we're talking about competitive awards and all reporting in that system in REEport is for competitive awards. So the first things you want to know about REEport is, like I said, it's a reporting system. So as Faith was talking about is, we are investing in research and in the good work that you're doing. And so we need a reporting system to track those investments and know what is going on with those. So that's things like the data that's going to go into that system is your initial project documentation, like she talked about, accomplishment reporting, and what's referenced earlier was some financial reporting. And then as far as data out, so of course you need to get at the data that goes into the system. So we talk about that here because we just want you to always be aware that anything that you enter into the REEport system is publicly available. And like Faith talked about, we use it here at NIFA in many, many ways. such as to answer congressional inquiries and other inquiries and for many other things. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, let's start off with project initiation. Next slide. So this is pretty intuitive. When you hear project initiation, it's pretty much as it sounds. It's the initial documentation of everything relevant about your project. So for example, period of performance, the goals of your projects, methods, and so on. It is a form that is automatically created by the system, and this will be a reoccurring theme that we'll touch on a couple times in this presentation, is that in REEport, as a general rule, there's no generic forms. So there's not forms that you like grab in a PDF format and download and fill out and then re-upload. Everything is a form that's integrated into our system, and you fill it out in the system and submit it in the system. And so there's a lot of pre-population of data into the forms. And that data that's pre-populated is specific to your award. So again, it's not a generic form that you fill out. Also, just keep in mind that when you are working in the REEport system and filling out, for example, the project initiation form, you're going to see that that pre-populated information, you're not able to edit it. There's a whole bunch of other sections that you're filling in. So of course, you're able to, put in whatever you want there, edit it later. We'll touch on that in a minute. But anything that's pre-populated, you're not able to edit that. If you find that any of that information you think is inaccurate, like let's say the start date you think needs to be different than what's listed there, you can reach out to us at that link there. It's electronic at usda.gov, and we can help you get directed to the right place to have that updated. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here's a note about the process when a project initiation form is created in the system for you for your award. If you are a PD, that's a project director at an LGU, stands for Land Grant University. If you're a PD at an LGU, except for 1994 tribal colleges, your access in the system to the initiation form, it's a two-step process. So when we first recommend your award, the system REEport will create that project initiation form for you. But before you can have access to it, if you're in an LGU, it needs to be assigned to the appropriate management site for you to have access, because it's just a way of controlling who has access to it. So it has to go into the right site so it's available for you. So until it gets assigned there, you don't have access to start working on it. So there's notifications that are sent to an administrator who works in REEport at your institution, and they make that assignment to the appropriate site. Once it gets assigned there, then you'll have access to go ahead and start working on and filling out that initiation form. So you're kept in the loop through this process. So when it first imports into REEport and it's awaiting assignment, you should, as the PD, get notification that the assignment is pending and that you won't have access. And then once it does get assigned and you have access, you should be notified then as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now let's jump into accomplishment reporting. Next slide. So accomplishment reporting is, I'm just going to start it off with, this is what Faith was talking about when talking about reporting your impacts. This will be in your accomplishment reporting. So there's a couple of different kinds of progress reports, and we'll touch on those. But yeah, when you get into REEport and you're doing your accomplishment reporting or filling out the progress reports, that's where you're going to be reporting your impacts in REEport. Okay, so some technical details about how the progress report works. So again, it's like the initiation form. A progress report, we refer to it as a shell, and it's created automatically by the system. And again, we call it a shell because it has information that is specific to your award. Like, so for example, the period of performance, or not period of performance, the reporting period that you're reporting on, the dates are pre-populated and you can't change them. So in the first year, REEport will only give you one reporting shell for that first year. So after you complete the first year of your project, that's when you go into REEport, you fill out that first progress report for that time period, and submit that. After you submit that to NIFA, only then will the system create for you the next year's reporting shell. And then a note there at the bottom, keep in mind that the system does not allow you to submit progress reports any earlier than 90 days prior to the reporting period end date. So just be aware that nothing's wrong, nothing's broken. If you go to submit it, the system will just give you an error. Just read the error. It's pretty self-explanatory, just letting you know you need to wait, until you're within that 90-day window. Then the system will allow you to submit. Okay, next slide. Okay, we want to differentiate between an annual progress report and a final progress report. So in REEport, you'll see once you're in there that they're labeled as two separate sections. One is just called progress reports, and the other is called final reports. And so that's to keep them separate so one doesn't accidentally get submitted when you intend to submit the other. Now, as far as the content of the form, it's identical to the annual progress report. So both reports in content, you're reporting the same information. The difference is on a final, you're giving us a summary of your accomplishments for the project as a whole. So we don't want a regurgitation of everything that you've already reported to us in previous years. Also keep in mind that in the final year, you're only required to submit the final report. So often there's confusion is, hey, I'm getting a notification from the system that it's telling me I need to submit an annual progress report and a final progress report in this final year. You only have to do the final progress report. Keep in mind that when you do submit that final report, you're signifying that you are closing out the project. And so for that reason, from day one that your project becomes active in the REEport system, you are able to submit that final progress report at any time. And that just is the mechanism that we have there, that if for whatever reason you need to close out your project early, then the final report is available for you to do so. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so you're entering all this different information into our system. What if you need to make edits? What if you find that, there's a typo or some bigger mistake that needs to be corrected? Let's talk about how you can do that. Next slide, please. Okay, first we'll touch on project change. So when you're in REEport, you'll see there is its own section and it is called project change. Project change is kind of as it sounds, is you are making a modification to the project. So that means you're modifying the project initiation form. So the way you can think of it is that project change in its own section is an exact copy of your project initiation. So when you go into project change, you make edits to that copy, and then you can submit that changed copy to NIFA. And then as soon as you submit it, it immediately updates your project initiation form. And now we have a new version of the project. You need to know that you can do this at any time. So it's not a one-time thing. If you realize, there's other mistakes or whatever changes need to be made, yeah, you can just go right back into project change. You can grab that copy and make changes at any time that you need to. The way that NIFA is kept in the loop is a PDF copy of the new version of the project will be emailed to the NIFA National Program Leader that is managing that program or your award. And then also keep in mind, again, there's certain fields, those pre-populated fields that you can't edit. Those you're not going to be able to change again in project change, just like you can't change them during the initiation. Again, just reach out to us at that support address and we can get you directed to the right resource to get those modified. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so then we have a slightly different mechanism for editing the progress and final reports. So we don't have a like change mechanism. It's not a separate section. Kind of think of it in this way, is that think of there as being a wall between forms that are in draft. When they're on your side of the wall, you have edit capability. When you submit a report to NIFA, now you've put it on our side of the wall and we have it, and you're not able to make edits, but neither are we. We are not going to edit your reports. So in order to make changes, we have to kind of send it back over the wall to you, put it back in draft status so you can make those changes. So the way that works is it's a manual process where you have to reach out to us and make that request. So there's a clock on this. And so the system is designed that within 90 days after it's been submitted, the system will lock it in place and we can't send it back to you. So you want to kind of, be aware and stay on top of this, that if you submit a report within 90 days, you can send us an email at electronic and let us know, hey, I need to make some changes. We'll send that back to you. You can make the edits and then you just resubmit it. And then we start a fresh 90-day clock. So particularly with the final report, you want to be very careful, first of all, that when you submit your final report, you're positive that you're closing out. Secondly, if you realize it was a mistake, really try to get to us within 90 days. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, moving on to financial reporting. Next slide. Okay, so the financial report in REEport, it is called the REEport Financial Report. It doesn't have a numbered name to it. And what are you reporting on this report? You're reporting expenditures and FTEs, that's full-time equivalent, also known as staff support, that supported the project in the most recently completed federal fiscal year. And really want to keep that in mind, that you're reporting on the federal fiscal year, because it kind of throws things off a little bit, because most reports all revolve around the anniversary of the start date of your project. And those can happen at all different times throughout the year. But regardless of when your project starts or when it ends, that you're always reporting on the federal fiscal year, which again is October 1st through September 30th. Also reiterate, this was pointed out earlier, that this is different from the SF425, which is submitted by PDF to awards at USDA.gov. So this is a form, again, like other forms in REEport, that is completed in our system. It's not a generic form that you download and fill out and upload. As far as the due date, so it is due every February 1st. So again, I'll just give the example. So like right now we are in FY23, right? So when we get to October 1st, then that's the turn of the fiscal year. So FY23 closes. Now your FY23 financial report is not due until February 1st of 2024, but you're reporting on all expenditures and FTEs that supported your project in FY23. I'll also point out that when your project comes to an end, that there is a mechanism to submit a final financial report, and that is due within 120 days after the end date. And then finally, there's a link there at the bottom of the slide to our financial report manual, and we'll touch on that at the end when we talk about resources. Okay, next slide, where we'll talk about some more specifics of the final financial report. So the final financial report, it's exactly the same as your annual financial report. It's just the last one, and it's just a slightly different mechanism for how you submit it. And it's a slightly different mechanism, so it has its own section. And that's purely to allow for you to submit it within 120 days of project close. Because the annual financial report, it's a yearly thing, and it's due February 1st, and it's reporting on a full fiscal year. So there just wasn't that mechanism to submit that report within 120 days. So we added this final financial report module to allow you to submit within 120 days. So you're still reporting expenditures and FTEs that supported the project, but it's in the current federal fiscal year. So again, so let's say your project ended today in FY23. This report is due within 120 days from today. And you're reporting on expenditures that supported the project in FY23 because it ended in FY23. Also, you'll note that the difference between the two financial reports is that you're able to submit these individually. So for example, let's say you manage 5 different awards. It's not typical, but let's say that you do. For the regular annual financial report, the system has you submit all of them in batch because it's a one time a year reporting. So you're reporting on them all at once. So you enter in your data, and when you click submit, you're reporting on all 5 in batch. Whereas obviously if they're ending at all different times throughout the year, for the final, you're able to submit them individually. And finally, one of the most important things to remember is you have to complete previous reporting before the system will allow you to submit this final financial report. So you have to submit the previous year's financial report and your final progress report before the system will allow you to submit. And we do have, so there's the financial manual, and we wrote an addendum to give you instructions on the intricacies of doing the final financial report. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's talk about due dates. Next slide. So these are just the different report types that we just talked about, and when are they due? So from top to bottom, the project initiation, you just want to do that as soon as you can, because doing the project initiation is part of our grant processing so that we can complete the award and get you your funding. So you just want to do that as soon as you are able to, as soon as you get notification. Progress reports are due within 90 days after the anniversary of the start date. The final report within 120 days after the project end date. And the financial report, like we just said, February 1st each year, and then within 120 days for the final. Next slide. Okay, we're just finishing up, just reminding you that, again, all data that goes into REEport is publicly available. Next slide, please. So our primary public-facing system is the data gateway. So this is just a screenshot showing you one page of the data gateway when you first go there. So if you clicked on any of these are like pre-canned reports that we have on various data in the system. There's also detailed custom searches that can be done. And again, everything is available to the public. And again, we use all this information. It's very valuable to us, from your impacts to your financial reporting to everything you put into the system. So again, this is what we use to show that NIFA is accomplishing its mission. And next slide. I think this takes us to the end. Yep, we're going to leave you with some resources. So that link that you see there on the top, that is the REEport support page. And we have a lot of different resources on there. They're all very useful, but the primary 2 that you want to focus on. So when you're on that page, I think you have to just scroll down a tiny bit. And I think it's labeled primary resources. And so the 2 that you want to look for, it's the REEport guide for project directors and the financial report manual. So between these 2, it virtually answers any question about anything that you would want to do in the REEport system, you're going to find here. So I highly encourage you to make use of these resources when you're using the system because it will answer your questions. And that said, next slide, please. If you go into there and you still find that either your question is not answered or you're encountering some kind of technical glitch, something just isn't working right, certainly reach out to us at electronic@usda.gov, and we are more than happy to help you. And that is it. So thank you all so much for your time, and we're happy to take any questions that you might have. I'm going to pull up the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'll go ahead and get those read out loud. With what time interval and when REEport needed? So I'm thinking that's asking, and what time intervals is the REEport needed?
Well, yeah, I mean, so if you're talking about, I mean, so again, there's various reports in the system, and we kind of just touched on those due dates. So most reports they follow the anniversary of the start date. So let's say annual reports, for example, annual accomplishments reports. So whenever your award started, let's say it started May 1st, then all reporting for progress reports is going to revolve around that. So your reports would be due no later than 90 days after the anniversary of the start date. So that's just one example. But again, the reports are due at various times.
Thank you, Adam. Another question in the Q&A is, in financial reporting section, expenses are being reported as FTE. How do I convert the cost of clinical study to an FTE?
Well, so let's clarify terms here just a little bit. So, and I'm going to read into this a little bit. I'm not sure, but so first of all, expenditures are expenditures. So that's dollars spent in support of the project. FTE stands for full-time equivalent, and that is a way of stating how many hours staff worked in support of the project. So two separate things. What you might be asking is, because I know a lot of times institutions will calculate their FTEs based on how much funding was paid to their staff. So if that's the case, yeah, I can't tell you how you're going to make those calculations, but what you do want to do is, to the best of your ability, determine how many hours each of your staff did spend in support of working for that project.
Thank you, Adam. The next question is, if you have a project that starts on June 1st, 2023, this means the first financial report would be due on February 1st, 2025 to report that what was spent in 2023 through 2024. Is this correct?
Not quite. So if you started in June 1st of 2023, that means your project is active in FY23. So when FY23 ends, which will be September 30th of 23, then on February 1st of 2024, that's when you'll submit your first financial report reporting on any expenditures that occurred between June 1st of 2023 and September 30th of 2023.
Thank you, Adam. Our next question is, are there plans to set up the NRS system to send reminders via email to PDs for capacity funds?
Alexis, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. And just to reiterate what Adam said, the NRS system is used for reporting for capacity programs. And we do have that on our list of things to do. But right now we're focused on the very core development of the system, primarily being the development of the financial module. So that's taking priority, but we definitely have a list of other things that will be coming in the future, and notifications is one of them.
Thank you, Alexis. Our next question is, what proportion of successful awards are typically allocated for time for compliance with procedures described today?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Apologies for that, but yeah, I wouldn't want to try to answer that. I'm not sure. I don't know if someone else wants to take a stab.
None of our other panelists want to add to that. Robert, if you could clarify your question in the Q&A, that would probably be helpful for us to try to get you an answer. Okay, our next question is, oops, Carlos, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I may have a take on that one. So what I'm reading from that question is, how much time should the staff, the grantee, allocate to comply with the reporting requirements? Those are requirements for your award. So make sure that as you craft your proposal, that you allocate enough FTE to be able for you to comply with the annual reporting, the financial, the programmatic, all of those reporting requirements is time that it is required for you to do. So if that means that you need to get some salary support from the grant to do that, you're allowed to do such things. So it really depends on how much the activities that you're carrying out in the project But some of those activities will include all the reporting requirements that are part of the terms and conditions of your award. I wanted to also note on something separate but also important that Adam mentioned. While REEport allows you to submit project changes, that doesn't mean that those project changes are approved. So please make sure that you contact the national program leader that is managing your project to talk about those project changes before you make them. Not because you submitted a report, that means that they're allowed and approved. So please talk to the program staff first before you make any changes. While we may get an email with it, that doesn't mean that we are approving of that change, and we don't want to get in trouble, at the end of the award for someone to say, "Hey, but I submitted the change in the first year." That doesn't mean that it's approved. That means that you made the change, but that doesn't mean that it's approved. So please contact the program staff beforehand and make sure that is allowable and that is an approvable change that you're trying to do. Thank you.
Yeah, Carlos, I just want to say that's a really great point. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, because REEport as a system, it won't warn you, it won't stop you. Yeah, there's no intermediary like review and approval step by NIFA. The system will allow you to make a change and it will allow you to submit it, and the system will implement that change immediately, like I said. So that's a great point, Carlos. And again, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so check with your program leaders before making those changes and submitting them in the system.
Thank you so much. So I believe that brings us to the end of this particular Q&A. I'm not seeing any open questions in the Q&A box. So with that being said, that brings us to our next topic, which is PD transfers. Our speakers for PD transfers will be Susan and Stephanie and Rachel. So I will give the mic to them at this time.
Great. Hello, everyone. Can we go to the next slide? And then the next slide. All right, this is once again our non-discrimination statement. I'm going to repeat it again for those of you that are joining. USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. This slide contains contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. That language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request, and that anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address listed on this slide. Right, next slide. All right, so what is a PD transfer? So PD transfer is a project director transfer that's an originally approved USDA NIFA award that's going to a new institution where the PD has accepted a new position. And before the PD will be able to transfer the award, certain procedures are required by NIFA to complete the requested transfer. Next slide. So first step, the project director has to contact the national program leader that is assigned to the project and to determine if the PD transfer is appropriate and to request approval. And now there's a number of things that the NPL takes into consideration when they receive the request. They'll look at whether the program allows PD transfers in the first place. It'll look at eligibility of the new institution to accept the award. For the Afri-Food and Agricultural Science Enhancement Phase funds, if your award was awarded or funded with those type of funds, then there's certain limitations on that. There's actually going to be a slide about that a little bit later on that I'll go into with more detail. And then capacity of the new institution to carry the project, and then what are the possible changes of scope and goals as a result of the transfer to the new institution. And then once the PD transfer has been approved, the NPL will notify the project director. Next slide. All right, the second step. So program staff will request documents from the PD to process out the closeout of the original award. This the most important thing you guys can take away from these PD transfers is the fact that like it is really dependent on you coordinating with your original institution to get all the documents that we request, and to make sure that you are communicating the steps along the way with the program staff that's assigned to doing your PD transfer. So you'll be working with an MPL and a program specialist from the very beginning of it. The third step is the program staff, usually the program specialist, will send you a PD transfer RFA, and that will have the new institution submit a new application, and then their original award will be closed out and a new award initiated. And it's important to remember that awards are made to the institution and not to the PD, and there are cases where the institution may elect to replace the PD rather than transfer the award. And those are called a PD change, and we'll discuss them next. Next slide. So what is a PD change? A PD change is when a project director is changed when the original PD is replaced by another PD. So if the new PD is at another institution, this will result in a PD change and a transfer. So examples, if the original PD is retiring or moving out of the United States, or if the institution decides not to allow the transfer of award. So say you're moving to a new institution and you want to take your award with you, but the original institution says, no, you can't, then they would do a PD change and change the PD to someone else on the award. Next slide. So let's look at a timeline. These take time. These take 3 to 6 months on average, sometimes even longer. It is incredibly important that you continuously work with the program staff with updates and making sure that you are working with the original institution to get all the required documents. It can be delayed, exponentially if, you're not working progressively on this along the way and making sure that you're communicating with people, because it is very much so your responsibility to work with your original institution. And then that processing time does not extend the period of performance. So your end date for your project remains the same. So the longer it takes, the longer you're having a period of gap of no work on your project. Now, if there's not enough time left on the award to transfer it, like we need at least a minimum of 3 to 4 months. If there isn't, what we'll do is we'll do a no cost extension to ensure that the closeout is completed before the award expires, because expired awards cannot be transferred. And then if you get to the point where, the processing time took too long, your period of performance and your end date is coming up, and you have not been able to finish your project, you can always request an no cost extension at the end of your project as well. You just want to make sure that if you do a no cost extension, you'll be wanting to do it at least a couple months before the award expires. And your first no cost extension does not require prior NIFA approval. So you would just work with your program sponsored office to get the documents sent over to our awards department. And then a PD change is much quicker. It does not require a new award to be made. So it is only roughly 1 to 2 months for that time frame. Right, next slide. And then this is a little bit about the phase funds. So AFRE phase grants. These are strengthening grants that can only be transferred to another strengthening eligible institution using the eligibility from the fiscal year of the funding. Strengthening grants are available during each funding cycle to ensure that researchers at institutions and states that are underrepresented in terms of federal research, education, extension receive a portion of AFRE funds. So that's another thing to take into consideration when you are considering doing a transfer, whether or not your award was awarded with phase funds or not, and to make sure that the institution that you are transferring to is eligible to receive those funds. This can be a little bit of a hiccup in the process if you do have phase funds. So it's something you'll want to definitely discuss with the MPL when you are considering this. And that's another thing. You want to make sure that you're communicating your desire to do a transfer well in advance of you actually moving to the institution, so that these types of questions, hey, is my project funded with phase funds or anything else that you need to know, you can talk with the MPL well in advance of actually needing to start the transfer. All right, next slide. And that's it, guys. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Susan. You do have a few questions in the chat. I'll read them out loud. And I do want to bring attention to our attendees that if you type a question in the chat, it gets missed because there's so much activity in the chat. If you type a question in the Q&A, which is what we're asking, then we can address it even if it's at a later time and it's recorded better. So I think I see that there is a question in the chat. If that could please be transferred to the Q&A, that would be very helpful. So the first question you have is, if the PD moves to a new institution and the original institution wants to keep the project, but USDA wants the project to move with the PD, how does that get resolved?
We don't make that decision. So USDA doesn't get to dictate if we want the project to move with the PD. It's awarded to the institution. So the grantees or the grantee is technically the institution, and they are allowed to make that decision. So unfortunately, we don't USDA NIFA, we don't get a say in that.
Thank you for that clarification. Second question, do the funds assigned for a co-PI salary and project consumables move if the co-PI changes universities?
I don't know if Stephanie or Rachel want to answer this one.
I would say that that depends on the institution. Like, because the way I'm reading this is that the co-PI is with the original institution and then they move to another institution. That doesn't mean that the money automatically moves with them. That means that the institution would have to make an arrangement with the co-PI or with the new institution. So it doesn't automatically move over with the co-PI. They could just name a new co-PI. If there might be something that Stephanie wants to add to.
I think that covers it.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, can a co-PI become a PI?
Yes, they can. That's actually happened before when you've had institution or situations where the institution wanted to keep the project. They have switched a co-PD and made them into a PD. There's other scenarios in which that could happen, but definitely.
Thank you for that. And I will go ahead and address one question that is in the chat if it hasn't already been answered. As I stated, it's very hard to find in the chat, which is why we kind of asked for you to do it in the Q&A, but I do not want it to get missed. So give me 1 second. Can we do PD change just because the current PD is too busy to lead the project?
Yes, if definitely, if your workload has gotten too strenuous and you want to pass along the project to a co-PD, that's a possibility. And Carlos wants to expand on that. Go ahead, Carlos.
But I will mention that what is important here is expertise, right? So if there's no other PD available to carry out the project, then the project should be terminated. We really need to make sure that the projects and the grants that are being made have the expertise necessary to carry out the project that was originally proposed. So the same with, can a co-PI become a PI, right? Like what is important to us is that each project has the expertise necessary to carry out the functions and reach the objectives and the goals that were originally proposed. So it's not always a super easy question, because our role is really to make sure that the projects have that expertise necessary. The same when it comes to like moving it somewhere else, right? Like, are there the facilities required to carry out the project at the new institution? And that's part of the review that we as national program leaders do, and that Susan was mentioning, that there's many things that take place on the back end for us to make sure that the project is in good hands, that it is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and that it can be successful as it is being performed.
Thank you for that addition, Carlos. If there's no more additions, I will move on to our next question in the Q&A box. If I know I am moving institutions, should I submit the grant proposal with the new institution name or need to wait to a new fiscal year?
So we can't, so say you, in that scenario, if you had submitted a proposal with the new institutions that you're moving to's information, if you aren't actually already employed there, then we wouldn't be able to do the award. You would have to, be employed before it can be awarded. So, what I would suggest in that situation would be for you to go ahead and apply under the institution that you're already currently at. And then depending on when you are transferring, it really would depend on when you're making the move. But if you are making the move before it's actually awarded, we could always do a pre-award transfer, which is a much easier process. And then if you haven't moved at that, by the time it's got awarded, we can always do a PD transfer afterwards.
Thank you. Carlos, I see you have your hand up. Did you want to add?
Yeah, and this could be a conversation to have with your new institution. They may allow you to submit a proposal from their side, from their institution from the beginning. So, if you know that you're moving, it will be a good idea to talk to the national program leader and make them aware of what is happening, but also to talk to your institution, your current and your new institution, to see if they will allow you to submit the project from the institution where you will be at. That way you will bypass the whole transfer process and it will just streamline what you need to do.
Thank you, Carlos. Our next question is, if it still needs to be completed during the originally proposed time, then what is the purpose of no cost extension? The budget can be used in an extended year.
So, and this is in response to, I elaborated on the response on the chat. The original question was about no cost extension, right? And my response was that it is expected that the projects are completed within the allocated time that was originally proposed. So while a no cost extension exists, it is really for you to make sure that if there are any final things that you need to finish that are completed, but it shouldn't be taken as something that you are able to use at all times, and that if you propose a 2-year project, that you're actually going to do it in 3 years. If you think that the project requires 3 years, then it should be proposed for those 3 years. Those 12 months that your institution may request are just really to make sure that the goals and objectives of the program or the project are finalized. Not because there are funds allowed, and our awards management team can elaborate on it. Federal regulations say that you are to complete the project within the time allowed, and not because you have funds that are existing there that you should carry out or extend the project just for the purpose of expending the funds, right? Like the idea of the no cost extension is that it is for you to finalize any goals or objectives that may not have been finalized. So as you propose your project, make sure that you are requesting for the time that will allow you to finalize and to complete all the activities that you have been proposing.
Thank you. So the next question that I'm seeing in our Q&A box is, can any university from the least successful institutions list be eligible to apply for phase strengthening grants?
Yes. If you are one of the least successful institutions, let me I'm going to drop a flow chart into that. There's a bunch of different stipulations in terms of like phase grants. So I'm going to provide you guys with resources on that particular question, so you guys can go look at them, because it would take a while to expand on all of it. And if the resources I provide you with don't provide you with all the answers you're seeking, you can always email the AFRE inbox, which I will also drop into the chat so you guys have that. you can always email them and ask them any questions you guys have in regarding phase grants.
I will note, though, that phase is a funding mechanism that we use internally at NIFA. So a phase proposal is not different than a regular proposal. So I wouldn't worry too much. I would just really encourage you to develop the best project you can, have the best partners you can to carry the best project that is available, right? So phase really is only a different pot of money that we have available. And it is only important when it comes to making that funding recommendation and where the funds come from. But really, there is no difference between the proposals being funded through phase funding or standard funding. The goal that you should have really is to make sure that your proposal is right on the top, right? That we don't want to use phase funding for your project. You want to use just funding. So regardless of which pot it comes from, you just want to develop the best project there is and put your best foot forward. So I would really encourage you to not think too much about phase and go down that path. Just really develop the best project that you can.
Thank you so much for that. I think we have one more additional question, but it looks like that answer is being provided in the chat, in the Q&A chat from Suresh, but I will read it out loud. Where do I find the appropriate national program leader contact?
I would say look at the RFA. The RFA lists who all the program contacts are for each of the programs. If you go to the one that it's the one that you applied to, there is a table for each and every single one of them, and it will say program contacts and have the NPLs listed there.
I see Nirja has her hand up.
In day 3 and day 4 presentations, all the presentations had the last 4 or 5 slides that gave you the information on how to contact the program staff. We provided you link for the funding opportunity page, and funding opportunity page has links to all the resources, including the RFA and the program page, where you will find the information about the program staff. And you all have access to these resources from our grants support technical assistance page.
Thank you, Nirja. And I just want to bring attention to the chat box, which is different than the Q&A, where a lot of our SMEs who are on the webinar today are dropping very, very helpful resources. For instance, it looks like Cassandra just dropped one about how to identify national program leaders on our website, an organizational structure type page. So that would be very helpful, I believe, also for that question. Okay, so we have one more question. It looks like Susan is answering. She just answered it, so I'm not going to go ahead and read that one. But for any of those, I believe the answered questions are viewable on the answer tab if you are interested in what the answer was to something that you may have potentially missed. So I just want to thank all of our speakers on that last presentation. Very, very helpful information. At this point, we're going to move to the general Q&A session, which means if there's a question that you have that perhaps was not answered or was not appropriate for you to type for one of the sessions that we had today, please feel free to drop that in the Q&A box. We do have one that we've received earlier that I was kind of saving for this section. And I'm going to go ahead and start off with that, but please don't be shy. Type those questions in the Q&A box. My question is a bit off track, but is there any update on the Next Gen grant review and award announcement status? The one-time grant opportunity that came out last fall.
Yeah, I can provide a response to that. So what I will say is that the review process at NIFA takes between 3 and 5 months from the application due date. And due to the complexity of the program, we expect to take the full amount before the notifications are made. Once the review process is completed, and regardless of the funding status, applicants will receive a review package for their application. And at this point, we don't have any other updates other than that.
Thank you so much, Carlos. So I'm seeing that there are no additional questions in the, oops, one just popped up. Are the reviewers on the grant panels paid for their service?
I'll take it. Yeah, so those that are eligible, so non-federal employees are not eligible for an honorarium. So we are able to provide $265 per day that
Carlos, your audio dropped. Is he still with us?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
What was I saying? So eligible panelists, usually that means people who are not federal employees, they are eligible to receive an honorarium of $265 per day that the panel meets. That doesn't mean, you know, the time that it takes you to read the proposals at home, none of that. It means that the days that we come together as a panel, those are the days that you may receive an honorarium for of $265 per day.
Thank you so much. So I just want to go ahead and read a comment, not necessarily a question in the Q&A, from one of our SMEs that's actually in the attendees today. It is from John LaBounty. Hi, everyone. Just to add to the prior question regarding a need for the initial NCE, you would still need to send in a formal request for processing. You will also want to make sure all of your reports are up to date, including the SF 425 reports. Thank you for that addition, John. Okay, let's see, we have one more question that we'll take before we move on to our closing remarks. From earlier days sessions about volunteering for reviewer, it was told that one should contact an NPL. In this case, who would be the appropriate contact?
I can take that question, Tara. When you are, it depends on your expertise and the program you are willing to be a panelist for. You should email that NPL and let them know that you are interested in serving as a panelist and you have already filled the volunteer form, and they will get back to you.
Thank you so much for that. So that brings us to the end of our session. I am going to go ahead and pass the microphone over to Drenda Williams for closing remarks. And if you do happen to type any more questions in the Q&A, don't worry, they won't be ignored. We will make sure that we address them after the session, and you can always reach out to the email that Nirja is going to post into the general webinar chat. And here's Drenda.
And good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Drenda Williams, the Associate Director for Operations at NIFA. And I just want to thank you for attending NIFA's Grant Support Technical Assistance Workshop this week. On our highest participation days, we had over 860 attendees that were interested in learning more about how to access and apply for many of the different federal funding opportunities NIFA has that's available to you. So we see from this level of interest that we want to continue to provide these types of workshops. So look for more of these types of seminars and webinars in the future. Over the past week, participants have gained valuable knowledge about our grant pre-application process, the importance of panel reviews with detailed insight on specific program goals, and the wrap-up on post-award management. So this Grant Support Technical Assistance Workshop and many others like it has made it made possible by NIFA staff from across the agency that make up the Learning and Development team, and you've probably heard from some of them this week. The Learning and Development team not only provides professional development internally to NIFA employees, but it also ensures that we're providing technical assistance and outreach to our stakeholders through webinars like the one we held this week. So based on input from the stakeholders, we are committed to meeting these additional technical assistance and outreach needs. And so I encourage you to subscribe to the NIFA update if you haven't already. It's our weekly e-newsletter. And I'll ask Nirja to put some of these links in the chat so that you can receive information about our funding opportunities weekly and any other online events that we may have. So you want to make sure you click that link and subscribe. And also there's more information to subscribe on our NIFA homepage as well. With that weekly newsletter, they'll also include funding opportunities. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to those that come up. And we also have a funding opportunity search option on our website. So Nirja, if you could put that link in there too, that'll keep you up to date on any funding opportunities that are announced. And then if you have any additional topics that you would like NIFA to cover, you can submit those through the Learning and Development team, which falls under our administrative and operations staff. So I'll ask Nirja to put that email address in the chat too. So any topics you find would be beneficial for NIFA to deliver, we'll welcome that feedback. And then we just want to continue to work to make sure that we're being transparent. Transparency is a priority for the agency, as well as incorporating diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in our programs and processes. And this is going to help us ensure that there's access, well, that everyone that is eligible has access to our funding opportunities. So again, I just want to thank you all for being here. I know it's been all week and taking time out every day to attend, but we just look forward to your attendance in the future at our next workshop. So again, thank you so much for taking the time this week, and we'll see you next time. Everyone have a great weekend.
Thank you, Drenda. Everyone have a great weekend.